Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, Namam Shripadaya Krishna Prastaya Budale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tanamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachadane Nirvashesha Sunyavadi Paskachare Satarne Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, I was asked to speak on CC Madhya Lila 11, starting with the summary. 11. Yeah. And is there, it's just a straight reading? Is that how we're doing this? Comments. Little comments? Okay. Okay. This is, Chaitanya Charitamrita is very special, as you all know. It's the one shastra that we have that Prabhupada gave us that actually teaches us how to be in relationship with one another. All the other shastras that we're reading from, they're giving us so much instruction about the creation, the material world, all the differences in the different modes of nature, et cetera, so much information. But in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's the essence of how a devotee exhibits and manifests love of Krishna by their relationships with the other devotees. That Lord Chaitanya gave us that gift. Okay, so Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur summarizes the 11th chapter in his Amrita Pravahabhasya. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya tried his best to arrange a meeting between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and King Prataparudra, the Lord flatly denied his request. At this time, Sri Ramananda Rai returned from his governmental post, and he praised King Prataparudra highly in Lord Chaitanya's presence. Because of this, the Lord became a little soft. The king also made promises to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who hinted how the king might meet the Lord. During Anavasara, while Lord Jagannath was resting for 15 days, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being unable to see Lord Jagannath, went to Alanath. Later, when the devotees from Bengal came to see him, he returned to Jagannath Puri. While Advaita Acharya and other devotees were coming to Jagannath Puri, Swarup Damodar and Govinda, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's two personal assistants, went to receive all the devotees with garlands. From the roof of his palace, King Prataparudra could see all the devotees arriving. Gopinath Acharya stood on the roof with the king, and following Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's instructions, identified each and every devotee. The king discussed the devotees with Gopinath Acharya, and he mentioned that the devotees were accepting prasadam without observing the regulative principles governing pilgrimages. They accepted prasadam without having shaved, and they neglected to fast in the holy place. After Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had explained to the king why the devotees had apparently violated the scriptural injunctions for visiting a place of pilgrimage, the king arranged residential quarters for all the devotees and saw to their prasadam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talked very happily with Vasudev Datta and other devotees. Haridas Thakur also came, and due to his humble and submissive attitude, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him a nice solitary place near the temple. After this, the Lord began performing Sankirtan, dividing all the devotees into 4 groups. After Sankirtan, all the devotees left for their residential quarters. So this is the part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Lord Chaitanya is participating in the Rath Yatra festival. Okay, I'm not good at Sanskrit. It's okay. Should I just read the translations? Okay. I don't want to torment you. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu merged the entire world into the ocean of ecstatic love by performing his beautiful dances within the temple of Jagannath. He danced exquisitely and jumped high. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Sri Advaita Prabhu, and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The next day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give him permission to submit a statement without fear. The Lord gave the Bhattacharya assurance that he could speak without fear, but added that if his statement were suitable, he would accept it, and if it were not, he would reject it. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, "There is a king named Prataparudra, Rai. He's very anxious to meet you, and he wants your permission." As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this proposal, he immediately covered his ears with his hands and said, "My dear Sarvabhauma, why are you requesting such an undesirable thing from me? Since I am in the renounced order, it is as dangerous for me to meet a king as to meet a woman. To meet either would be just like drinking poison." Greatly lamenting, the Lord then informed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, "Alas, for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification, or seeing a woman who is similarly interested, is more abominable than drinking poison willingly." Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, "My dear Lord, what you have said is correct, but this king is not an ordinary king. He is a great devotee and servant of Lord Jagannath." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Although it is correct that the king is a great devotee, he is still to be considered a venomous snake. Similarly, even though a woman be made of wood, one becomes agitated simply by touching her form." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sri Chanika Pandit has stated in his moral instructions, "Chyaja durajana samsargam bhaja sadhu samagamam." This means that one has to abandon the association of materialistic people and associate with spiritually advanced people. However qualified a materialist may be, he is no better than a venomous serpent. Everyone knows that a snake is dangerous and poisonous, and when its hood is decorated with jewels, it is no less poisonous or dangerous. However qualified a materialist may be, he is no better than a snake decorated with jewels. One should therefore be careful in dealing with such materialists, just as one would be careful in dealing with a bejeweled serpent. Even though a woman be made of wood or stone, she becomes attractive when decorated. One becomes sexually agitated even by touching the form. Therefore, one should not trust his mind, which is so fickle that it can give way to enemies at any moment. The mind is always accompanied by 6 enemies, namely Kama, Krodha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya, and Bhaya. That is, lust, anger, intoxication, illusion, envy, and fear. Although the mind may be merged in spiritual consciousness, one should always be very careful in dealing with it, just as one is careful in dealing with a snake. One should never think that his mind is trained and that he can do whatever he likes. One interested in spiritual life should always engage his mind in the service of the Lord, so that the enemies of the mind, who always accompany the mind, will be subdued. If the mind is not engaged in Krishna consciousness at every moment, there is a chance that it will give way to its enemies. In this way, we become victims of the mind. Chanting the Hare Krishna mantra engages the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna constantly. Thus, the mind's enemies do not have a chance to strike. Following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's example in these verses, we should be very careful in dealing with the mind, which should not be indulged in any circumstance. Once we indulge the mind, it can create havoc in this life, even though we may be spiritually advanced. The mind is specifically agitated through the association of materialistic men and women. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through his personal behavior, warns everyone to avoid meeting a materialistic person or woman. That's a very, very heavy purport by Srila Prabhupada, very instructive for all of us. We all know what the mind is capable of at this stage of the game in Krishna consciousness. And we have to be constantly self-talking and remembering the lotus feet of Krishna, and we had this japa class the other day at the temple. Vaish led it, and at the end of the period, he asked everyone what their go-to is. How do they overcome their mind? Maybe we could just do that really quickly, because it was really helpful to hear. Does anybody here have any go-tos, like things that they do specifically to keep their mind focused on japa when you're chanting japa? Anybody? Swavas Prabhu? So that's one of the, like we were taught, engaging the senses. So that's the sense of touch. And if you concentrate the mind on that act of going through the tulsi beads, that's one good. It's like sometimes people carry little rocks in their pocket to remind them of things, to send to them or remind them, anger management or whatever, just to remind you. So the japa beads are doing that for us. Does anybody else have any? Yes, Prabhu?
Volume. I remember what Prabhupada said in London, you should chant loud enough so you hear yourself, but not so loud that you disturb others. So over the years, I've noticed there are some devotees when they chant japa, even if you sit next to them, you don't hear anything at all. The lips are moving, but you don't hear anything. You have to hear sound. That sound is what keeps your mind focused. If you don't hear the sound, then the mind will naturally just go somewhere else. So you have to focus on your own sound. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, like that.
Yeah, hearing.
Yeah.
Hearing is very important, and the holy name, and that it'll bring you back. Somebody? Jamuna?
I was also going to say hearing, but I feel like I have to slow it down. So pace really matters if I'm finding my mind really running. Slowing it down so I can properly hear every syllable, like you were saying, hearing in volume, but just to me, slowing it down. I can catch my mind just going, and you're just like, nope, and you kind of pull it back intentionally. For me, I do it by slowing it down and then hearing. No matter where you are, you can do that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I use that trick a lot too, because you could find yourself slurring the words, and you can find yourself just rushing. And it's kind of, then your attention just goes it just becomes like automatic pilot. And it's not the medicine. The medicine doesn't work when you're on automatic pilot. Naikatma Prabhu?
I was just going to add to that I try to keep a certain rhythm with my japa so that it feels like it's in a flow and not broken.
That's nice. So it's the medicine. It's the medicine, and Prabhupada's words here are so strong about the warning to not think we're okay, we've got it covered, because at any moment the mind can carry you, and from contemplating the objects of the senses, it's a downhill slope. So this is like a really important lesson. I'll continue. Just as one is immediately frightened upon seeing a live serpent, or even the form of a serpent, one endeavoring for self-realization should similarly fear a materialistic person or a woman. Indeed, he should not glance at their bodily features. Now, of course, when I read a woman, and from the history of what's gone on a lot in this movement, to me it's a little bit of a buzzword, like not how Prabhupada's saying it, but what it's come to mean in many places. But you'll notice when you read Prabhupada's words in context of what he's talking about, it's not just about women. He's qualifying it. So in this case, it's materialistic women and also materialistic men, because the temptation is there. The whole world is working on making money, right? That's like a big driving, right? And how is it that they're getting money? Advertising. How does advertising work? It plants ideas in your mind so you could start wanting things. It fuels your desires. So similarly, if you are around materialistic people and they're very happy in their materialistic life, it can agitate one's mind. So Prabhupada's warning us not to do that. Now, of course, when we go out and we preach Krishna consciousness, that's a different story, right? You're not associating on their level. But it's tricky, because you get to a place in Krishna consciousness where you're happy in Krishna consciousness. You don't feel like you want outside life. But if you leave the association of devotees, you still have to be careful, because at any moment, and that's what Prabhupada's saying here, don't ever feel like you've got it covered and it can't happen to you. So we just have to be aware and respectful to all the women in the movement, because Prabhupada's not meaning to make you feel like they're temptresses, right? They're not. Devotee women are mothers, and I once spoke at a temple president's meeting. It was the first meeting of the women's ministry, and it was in Houston. I remember this, and I asked all the devotees to close their eyes and picture an ISKCON with no women, like no women at all in it, and what would that be like? And everybody decided it wouldn't be very nice. There'd be a lot of things missing. So we have to be respectful towards each other, and remember that we're helping each other in Krishna consciousness every step of the way. We need each other. That's what enthuses and enlivens us. Okay, I'll keep going. Bhattacharya, if you continue to speak like this, you will never see me here again. Therefore, you should never let such a request come from your mouth. Being afraid, Sarvabhauma returned home and began to meditate on the matter. At this time, Maharaj Prataparudra arrived at Jagannath Puri, Purushottam, and accompanied by his secretaries, ministers, and military officers, went to visit the temple of Lord Jagannath. Purport. It appears that Maharaj Prataparudra used to live at Katak, his capital. Later, he shifted his capital to Khurda, a few miles from Jagannath Puri. Presently, there is a railway station there called Khurda Road. When King Prataparudra returned to Jagannath Puri, Ramananda Roy came with him. Ramananda Roy immediately went to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great pleasure. Purport. All Indian kings are given titles. Sometimes they are known as Chhatrapati, sometimes as Narapati, sometimes as Ashwapati, and so on. The king of Orissa is addressed as Gajapati. Upon meeting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Roy offered his obeisances. The Lord embraced him, and both of them began to cry in the great ecstasy of love. Seeing Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intimate dealings with Sri Ramananda Roy, all the devotees there were astonished. Ramananda Roy said, "I duly informed King Prataparudra of your order for me to retire from service. By your grace, the king was pleased to relieve me of these material activities." Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested Ramananda Roy to retire from his governorship, and according to the Lord's desire, Ramananda Roy petitioned the king. The king was very pleased to give him relief, and thus Ramananda Roy retired from service and received a pension from the government. Wouldn't that be nice? If you just said to your boss after working for a long time, "I want to go serve Srila Prabhupada," and he said, "Yes, go and get full retirement benefits." I said, "Your Majesty, I am now not willing to engage in political activities. I desire only to stay at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kindly give me permission." When I submitted this proposal, the king immediately became very pleased upon hearing your name. Indeed, he instantly rose from his throne and embraced me. "My dear Lord, as soon as the king heard your holy name, he was immediately overwhelmed by great ecstatic love. Catching my hand, he displayed all the symptoms of love. As soon as he heard my petition, he immediately granted me a pension without reductions. Thus, the king granted me a full salary as a pension and requested me to engage without anxiety in the service of your lotus feet." Then Maharaj Prataparudra very humbly said, "I am most fallen and abominable, and I am unfit to receive an interview with the Lord. One's life is successful if one engages in his service." The king then said, "Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda. He is very merciful, and I hope that in a future birth he will allow me an interview." My Lord, I don't think that there is even a fraction of Maharaj Prataparudra's loving ecstasy in me. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, "My dear Ramananda Roy, you are the foremost of all the devotees of Krishna. Therefore, whoever loves you is certainly a fortunate person. Because the king has shown so much love for you, Lord Krishna will certainly accept him." Purport. King Prataparudra requested an interview with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the Bhattacharya, who duly submitted the request. The Lord, however, immediately refused this interview. Now, when Ramananda Roy informed the Lord how eager the king was to see him, the Lord was immediately pleased. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested Ramananda Roy to retire from his government post and come to Sri Purushottam Kshetra, Jagannath Puri, to live with him. When this proposal was submitted to King Prataparudra, he immediately accepted it and also encouraged Ramananda Roy by allowing him a full pension. This was very much appreciated by the Lord, and this confirms the fact that the Lord is more pleased when one serves the servant of the Lord. In ordinary parlance, it is said, "If you love me, love my dog." To approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to go through his confidential servant. This is the method. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu clearly says, "Because the king loves you, Ramananda Roy, he is very fortunate. Krishna will certainly accept him due to his love for you." So, how fortunate are we that we get to serve Srila Prabhupada? And that Srila Prabhupada, this Rath Yatra festival, everything Srila Prabhupada's done was to create an environment where we could have these same pastimes, these same pastimes that Lord Chaitanya is teaching us about. Prabhupada created that world for us and guaranteed us that if we follow, he promised us that if we follow. I was reading yesterday in a class that Prabhupada gave, he was explaining to the devotees that Krishna can break his promise. Sometimes he does. If he promised you something, it might not happen. But Krishna is very, very careful to keep the promises of his pure devotees. So that's pretty special, because Prabhupada promised us that he would take us back to Godhead if we followed his instructions. And what more do we need to hear than that? I mean, that's pretty special. Lord Krishna told Arjuna, those who are my direct devotees are actually not my devotees, but those who are the devotees of my servant are actually my devotees. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes this verse from Adi Purana. The verse is also included in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. So if we think of that also when we're dealing with each other, that uplifts the whole society, right? It's like we, Srila Prabhupada, we love him so much. He's given us so much and we want to serve him. But we have to be careful to not be like the sons that Prabhupada told that story. They massage the father, right? The two sons are massaging the father because they want to please him, but then the sons start fighting. And while they're fighting, they're pulling on the father's arms and legs and kind of, being rough, and it's hurting the father. So we have to take these lessons, these priceless gifts that Prabhupada gave us, and make them our life's work to achieve, these high sentiments of loving the devotees, serving Srila Prabhupada, loving Krishna, and the reciprocation we get is unbelievable. We get so much happiness from that. There's no happiness in arguing and fighting and would you rather be right or happy? That's another thing too. Sometimes, when devotees, they can have differences of opinions and they just stick to their opinions, okay, and then you walk away with I'm right. But that's not the feeling that's going to really satisfy the soul, satisfy your heart. So we have to keep that in mind in our dealings with each other. And every time I come to New Dwarka, I feel so much ecstasy from seeing so many wonderful devotees here have been so steady for so many years. It just warms my heart, and I always get such warm welcome, and it's so uplifting that, we have our beads, we have our sadhana, but without the devotees, I wouldn't be able to make it in Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada, that's why he created temples. He didn't want the big buildings. It wasn't about the buildings. It was about the devotees have a place now where they could come together and they could practice and they could work as teams and they could, follow the example of Lord Chaitanya and have loving exchanges and make nice prasadam and take nice prasadam and, etc. And put on Rath Yatra. I think I was supposed to go. I'm up to 31. Did you want me to stop it, Prabhu? Should I keep going? Okay. What time does this end, by the way? 5 minutes more, okay. Lord Shiva told the goddess Durga, "My dear Devi, although the Vedas recommend worship of demigods, the worship of Lord Vishnu is topmost. However, above the worship of Lord Vishnu is the rendering of service to the Vaishnavas, who are related to Lord Vishnu." Prabhupada's purport. The Vedas are divided into 3 divisions: Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. These are activities dealing with fruitive work, empiric philosophical speculation, and worship. There are recommendations in the Vedas for the worship of various demigods as well as Lord Vishnu. In this quotation from the Padma Purana, Lord Shiva answers a question posed to him by goddess Durga. This verse is also included in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita 2.4 by Srila Rupa Goswami. The words Vishnur Aradhanam refer to the worship of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Thus, the supreme form of worship is the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. It is further concluded that the worshipper of Lord Vishnu renders better service by worshiping the devotee of Lord Krishna. There are different types of devotees, those in Shantaras, Dasyaras, Sakyaras, Vatsalyaras, and Madhuryaras. Although all the rasas are on the transcendental platform, Madhurya Ras is the supreme transcendental mellow. Consequently, it is concluded that the worship of devotees engaged in the Lord's service in Madhurya Ras is the supreme spiritual activity. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers mainly worship Lord Krishna in Madhurya Ras. Other Vaishnavacharyas recommended worship up to Vatsalya Ras. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami in his Vidagya Madhava describes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult as supreme. Anarpita charam chirat karunaya vatirna kalo samarpaitam unat tojvala rasam sva bhakti shriyam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, oops, I lost it. It went away. Okay. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this age of Kali to exhibit the super excellence of Madhurya Ras, a gift never previously bestowed by any acharya or incarnation. Consequently, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is accepted as the most magnanimous incarnation. It is he only who distributed love of Krishna while exhibiting the super excellence of loving Krishna in the conjugal rasa. So, does anybody have any questions or thoughts? Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for a very nice class. I just have a comment to add to your comment and Srila Prabhupada's comment to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's rejection of meeting King Prajaparudra and how one should be careful about material association. It's just like when you when you contract a disease, some illness, these symptoms aren't immediate. They take some time to develop. So similarly, we may be in the association or in a situation where we think we're quite safe. But we have to remember that materialistic association or that illness takes time to exhibit itself, the symptoms. And you may not see it or perceive it, but before you know it, you're sick and you're trapped. And you're affected or afflicted by that association. So one should be very careful and not be too bold or think that this won't affect me, but it has its subtle effects on the consciousness, and in due course it'll be exhibited. So association is so important, and especially devotee association, like you were pointing out. But that same caution has to be there in that materialistic association, because we don't know the subtle effects of it. And before you know it, you're thinking, oh, I don't need this process anymore, or what's wrong with these people? Better I go out and do something else and experience some kind of spiritual pleasure. When in actuality, you're hurting yourself.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good point. Especially, we see that there's material opulences all around us. We live in a very opulent country. It's easy to have this opulence. And it's easy to kind of slide, just slide into those desires. We've seen, unfortunately, we've seen devotees fall down. So nobody is immune from it. Maya Devi's very good at her job, She sees a little crack in the surface and she just enters right in. And Srila Prabhupada's, we're so fortunate to have had Prabhupada when we did, because he wasn't here very long, but he was so strong on these things, so strong. So we could now, 50, 60 years later, look back on his words and still feel him. That it seems sometimes we get a little lax. Our preaching isn't as heavy anymore, right? The preaching's a little softer because we don't have what Prabhupada had to be able to just jolt people into Krishna consciousness like he did for us. So if you go to a yoga studio or if you're going to preach and you start using the words Prabhupada used, it's going to be difficult for us. So we've tried so many different ways to attract people to come in a softer, gentler way. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't, in our mind, hear Prabhupada's words of warning and strength, that we have to be careful all the time in Krishna consciousness. Yes, Prabhu? Oh.
I just read a quote from Srila Prabhupada last night, and he says that, be very careful of fall down. It could set you back millions of years.
Yeah, it's scary proposition, right? Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, in a lecture, Srila Prabhupada mentions, he was defining what a woman is. He said, woman means that which is enjoyable. So for a man, woman, for a man, woman is a woman, and for a woman, man is a woman.
Yeah.
Explain like that.
Yeah. That has to be clear, that Prabhupada, when he talks about the dynamics between men and women, it goes for both. It goes for both. I heard a lecture in Mayapur last year on Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's appearance day. Jayapataka Maharaj gave it, and he read an article written by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati in The Harmonist. And the article, I'll paraphrase it, basically said that in Krishna consciousness, marriage is a partnership meant to serve Krishna. That neither should ask for the service of the other. Neither should be the servant of the other. That the idea is that they serve Krishna together. So we're on a different level. There's so many different philosophies in all different countries and all different cultures of the roles of men and women and what's the point of life, and most of them are to enjoy, right? Most of the philosophies out there, bottom line is they're designed for material enjoyment. We have a different lifestyle, we have a different commitment here to Srila Prabhupada, and we're working together to achieve something that's unbelievably hard to achieve. But Prabhupada made it easy for us. He made it easy for us, but it comes with warning, right? We have to be careful. So yeah, it goes for both men and women, and everybody has a mind, and it starts with the mind, right? Any kind of problem starts with the mind. So anyway, if we chant Hare Krishna, we'll be happy and we'll go back to Godhead. Yes, Prabhu, one more?
Krishna is a Purusha. He's the enjoyer.
Yeah.
And we all are Prakriti. We're to be enjoyed by him.
Thanks, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna.